Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing this DIY bathroom vanity makeover with you. This was an easy makeover. It was definitely done on a budget, and this bathroom is in a rental property that we own that we're having renovated to sell, and you can find all the details about that on my website, which I will link for you below, and I will also link to everything that I used for this project. If you have any questions, please leave those in the comments section, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon. All right, let's get started. I started with the countertop, and the first thing I did was just give it a good cleaning and get all of the dirt and grime and nasty stuff off of there. Then I sanded it lightly with 150 grit sandpaper just to give the epoxy something to grab onto. Then I wiped away the dust with a damp cloth and let that dry. I taped off everything and covered everything surrounding the vanity with a plastic drop cloth because the overspray from the epoxy I'm using is pretty bad. I even needed a drop cloth just outside the door out in the hallway because there was overspray kind of getting out there and I didn't want to ruin the floors, obviously. I taped plastic over the sink too, and really just anywhere I wanted to protect. I would say definitely take your time with the taping and the laying of the drop cloths and all of that because the overspray really is bad and you don't want anything around getting ruined. So definitely with this entire project, take your time. For this project, I used this Rust-Oleum appliance epoxy in the color white, and it isn't really intended for use on countertops, but I've seen other people use it with success, so I thought I would give it a try, especially since this is meant to be a temporary solution anyway. I assume the people who purchase this home will eventually want to replace this dated vanity, so it was worth a try. I shook the can for a full minute per the instructions, and then I sprayed a coat as evenly as possible. And by the way, you will definitely want to wear a mask or a respirator since the fumes are really strong. Respirators are hard to come by right now with COVID, but I at least used a mask that I had on hand. I let the first coat dry for about an hour, and then I went back and applied a second coat. I removed all the tape and plastic while that second coat was still damp because I didn't want the paint to dry and seal the tape on, which would have meant peeling up some of the epoxy with the tape, and it could have been a huge mess. After the countertop dried completely, it was time to paint the cabinet. I started by taping and laying down a plastic drop cloth. Then I lightly sanded it using fine grit sandpaper. Again, you just want to sand enough to give the paint something to grip onto. You don't need to spend much time on this or sand the existing finish off. I will go ahead and link to my furniture painting tutorial, which walks you through the exact technique I always use. I wiped the dust away with a damp cloth, or tack cloth works great for this too, and then it was time to prime. I used Zinsser primer and applied it using a small angle brush. In fact, I painted everything using this brush just because it's personal preference and I was in a really tight space and this is a very small vanity, but you could definitely use a small foam roller for the larger parts of the cabinet if you'd prefer. Sometimes I do that instead. Now I took the lazy way out and painted over the hinges, which I know is cringe-worthy for some people, so if you would prefer, then definitely tape over them or just remove the doors and paint them separately with no hinges attached. I just really wanted it all to blend together and I didn't want the hinges to stand out. I just applied a really thin coat and then allowed it to dry completely, and then I lightly sanded it and wiped the dust off, and then it was time to paint. I used Behr Marquee paint in the color Elephant Skin in a satin finish. I applied 2 thin coats, sanding lightly in between, and I allowed it to dry with the cabinet doors partially open so they wouldn't stick. Again, I chose to use the angle brush just because it was really easy to get into all the little spaces and nooks and crannies, but you could use a foam roller for this instead. I decided not to paint the entire inside of the cabinet, although sometimes I do, so that's totally up to you. The doors have these little vertical grooves in them, so I tried to paint inside the grooves first and then went back over everything with my brush. Like I mentioned, I did lightly sand in between the first and second coats of paint using 150 grit sandpaper just to smooth it out and get a really flawless finish. This is sort of my go-to technique, and it really does make a difference. I've found in the past, whenever painting furniture or bathroom vanities or whatever it is, the best way to do it is to apply multiple thin coats instead of just trying to get away with one thick coat. You'll get a much more professional looking finish that way. Now I opted not to add a top coat and just to let the paint cure on its own instead, but you could definitely use like a water-based polyacrylic or water-based polyurethane for added protection if you want to. Once again, I did peel up the tape while the paint was still damp because I didn't want the paint to seal the tape on and then risk pulling up the paint with the tape later on. And now for the outtakes. Done on a budget, and this bathroom is in a with you. What just happened to my voice? Oh my gosh. Definitely done on a budget. This was an easy project. You. This vanity, no.
Oh my gosh, this is absurd.
What is biting me? Oh my god. Okay, jeez. Hi, my name is blah, 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 blah. Oh, jeez. Thanks so much for watching. You can find me online at erinspain.com and on social media at erinspainblog. In the meantime, please check out some of my other videos and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you.